Hi, so this is my presentation on personal availability tool. I'm Styx Meiseles. I'm just going to go over exactly what it is, what my motivation for it, the design decision behind it, and then finally a walkthrough of the actual product. So first, let's just move on to the motivation. Um, so when I started brainstorming about what project I wanted to do for this class, I had a couple of things uh, which concerned me at the time. The most important one is that I was thinking about how can I do certain things while also trying to spend less time on my phone. Due to COVID and also just in general for health reasons, I've been on my phone and I've been on electronics a lot, and I think sometimes it could be healthy to be disconnected. But when I thought about this, there are some important things that come with being disconnected. Mainly, how can people know if I'm available? And how can I prevent unauthorized access to my spaces? Like if I had my phone on me, then somebody could just call me and say, hey, like somebody's in your room, what's going on? And also this also acts as a security system, even independent from being disconnected from electronics or not. And another concern was how can people let me know if they need me? And all these things are, of course, very easy to do with a phone, but without that came my concern. And so I decided to use this Internet of Things class as a way to demonstrate to myself that I could actually put together a network which notifies me and does all of these tasks for me. So then I'm just going to move on to exactly how I got my system set up and the data flow behind it. But first, I'm just going to give exactly what I used for the project. So I used 3 Raspberry Pis and 1 Telos B. So I needed the Telos B for its light sensors. There's also buttons on it. And then I used the Raspberry Pis mainly for the external displays, the buzzers, and also a very important component is the wireless communication that's between them, because the Telos B only communicates through a serial port, but the Pis enable me to get data just like almost as a phone would get data wirelessly. And the languages I used for this project is Nest-C, Java, Python, and JavaScript. And some technologies which I was excited to use during this project was WebSockets. I've heard a lot about it, and this is my first time using it, which was exciting. What WebSockets does is it features a bi-directional server support. In general, servers only support one-way connection, and then let's say you have a one-way connection between the client, and then the server needs to send another connection. But WebSockets actually allows you to exchange data in a much faster, more efficient manner. And of course, I use Adafruit for actually programming my external display. So here's the design diagram that I have for it. So what's happening, so I have my Telos B, the Raspberry Pis, just as a central node sort of in the middle of this diagram. So what's happening is, so the Telos B has a light sensor and a button on it. And then the Telos B sends that information, like if the button is pressed and also just the light readings, then it sends that to the Raspberry Pi that's in my room through the serial port. And then from there, the Raspberry Pi uses its WebSockets communication to send that data to the Raspberry Pi on my door. And the Raspberry Pi on my door is sort of a central hub for all the data. So once it gets there, then it has the light data from my room. It has whether the call button was pushed, and it has the location of my room inside of it. And so the door has that information now. And then from there, I have the Raspberry Pi that I carry on me that also sends its location to the door. So now the door has both the location of my room and the location of where I am. And so from there, it can calculate if I'm in my room, how far away I am, and what's the status. Like, is there somebody in my room? Like, is the light on when I'm not there? What exactly is going on? And it can actually display that then on the external display that it's connected to. But more importantly than that, of course, it could display based on that readings whether I'm here or whether I'm away, so that other people could know. And a security feature involved in it is actually the door also sends information back to the Raspberry Pi which I carry, which is where the WebSockets and the bidirectional communication comes into play. And so once the door knows my status and if there could be somebody in my room, it of course displays it on my door, but it also actually sends it to the Raspberry Pi which I have on me, and it buzzes me, just like a regular buzzer which you might find in a store or even just somebody calling you on your phone. Then that sends it to me. So this sort of does an amalgamation of things which both a phone would do and which a security system would do. So now that you've seen this design diagram, this is just the explanation which I already wrote down. So basically the room Raspberry Pi sends data to the Telos B, which then, so then the Raspberry Pi then sends it to the door. And meanwhile, the carried Raspberry Pi sends location to the central hub, and then from the central hub, everything could be calculated, and what needs to be displayed could be displayed, which is whether I'm in my room, whether I'm out of my room, if somebody's trying to contact me, if there's somebody in my room who should not be in my room. And then it sends that information. It could buzz me in if there's a problem, or if I'm actually being called. And of course, the person could cancel the call too, and then the buzzer would stop buzzing. And so it does all of these things for me. And it's really, I found it to be a pretty good replacement, definitely a good prototype at the very least, as a replacement for my phone. So now that I've given this overview, I'm going to actually go on to exactly how it works and give a demo of things. So first, I'm just going to go to my device and turn it on. So there's a Python program over here, which I'm starting, which is on the device which is carried, which initializes different buzzer sequences. And then there's a WebSocket server on the Raspberry Pi 2. That's just, I just named it Carry Pi to make it easier for me to see, but that's not a problem. And then here's the Raspberry Pi that's in my room, which also gets data from my lights, and also if somebody tries to call me, so that's an important component. And then over here is the Python script for the external display that's attached to my door. So that this is the thing which actually lets other people know what, if I'm busy, if I'm not busy, what's going on. And then over here, the door, this is the central hub. So this actually communicates with both of the Raspberry Pis in my room and the one that I'm carrying, and actually does the main calculations of everything and forwards the data and actually makes sure that everything really works. So now that I've initialized things, I'm just going to switch over and give an actual demo of the live project. Okay, so here's my project demo. Here's all of my devices. I'll just go through them and identify them one by one. So over here's the Telos B device. It has a serial connection to the Raspberry Pi over here, both of which are in my room. So that gives me the light sensor data. It gives me a button which other people could call me by. And it also gets the current location through an external API call. And then it sends all of this data to the Raspberry Pi, which is on my door, which is the central hub. And also connected to the central hub is the device which I carry with me, which has a buzzer, which upon given certain data, it buzzes and notifies me. That's the device I carry with me. And then over here is the Raspberry Pi that's for my door. And as you can see over here, it has the external display hooked up to it, and it connects to both of my room and the device which I carry with me. So now I'm just gonna run through some of the features one by one. So first, as you can see over here, the device is available right now. And that's because the device that's in my room sends the data, which it knows that my light is on, and it knows the location of my room through an API call. And then then the door gets that information, and the door gets that information while it also gets the information from the device which is carried on me. And so it knows the location of my room and of me, and then it could calculate if I'm a reasonable distance away, if I could be in my room, and then if my light is on, and if not, like, what's my situation? So right now it knows that my light is on and that I'm in my room, so it displays available. And let's see what happens if we change that situation. So I'm just going to turn off my light. And now we see over here it's pretty dark in here, but you still see the available just because it takes a couple seconds for the screen to actually update because there's HTTP connections going on. But as you can see now, the display automatically changed to sleeping because it got that information from the different sensors, and it sees that I'm still in my room based on the location data, but since my light is off, then I must be sleeping. And then, once I'm done sleeping, then it could actually calculate that I'm available again. So I just turn on my light again. And then if you see here, the sensors communicate with each other and it displays available. So now I'm just gonna run through the call functionality too, which is another important aspect of my program. So over here, if somebody wants to call me, then they just push the call button over here. And then you can see that the light on the Telos B goes on. And then you'll also see in a second that the external display will also give feedback. And this is, so the devices communicated with each other. And you see that the buzzer which I carry around also started going. And the display displays that it's calling just for the user. And then of course, if you want to cancel the call, then you could do that too. You just press the button again. And then the Telos B light goes off, the sensor call goes off, and of course the buzzer goes off. So now I'm going to show you exactly what happens with, for example, intruder detection. It's a similar process. I need to change my location for this to work though. Okay, so now over here, I spoofed an API call to show that I'm not in my room because it became difficult to record out of my room, and there's just it was just hard to do. So instead I spoofed the location of the API call. So over here you can see that the screen over here oh yeah, it's there. It's hard to see, but you can see that it displays out over here because the location now from the device which I carry is sending different coordinates, which then compared to the device that's inside of my room, then the door calculates that I'm actually not in my room, so then it displays that I'm out. And since my light's off, everything's fine because I'm out of my room and the light's off, like that's expected when somebody's out of the room. But let's see what happens if my light turns on when this network also knows that I'm not in my room. So here we go. So now my light is on again, and you can see that it just takes a second to update because the 3 devices or 4 devices are talking to each other. And then you'll see in a couple seconds that you see a different frequency buzzer goes off. The screen says alert intruder detected. And so that actually gives me a heads up about who's in my room, what's going on, and so that I know if I have to come back or if, what's happening. Okay, so now you've seen all the capabilities of this network. So there's a call functionality, which enables people to call me and also to be able to cancel their calls and to get feedback on what is happening with their calls. You could see that I also get intruder alerts about if somebody is trying to get into my room when they shouldn't be. And you could see how the information about whether I'm available, whether I'm free, exactly what's happening is also available for my friends to see if they want to hang out or just if they want to know like what's happening with me. And so that's my project. Let me know if you have any questions, please.